Hey friends and music makers, well, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into the world of indie dance. We'll be creating a track from scratch using only stock Ableton Live devices and effects. So join me as we explore the key elements that define this genre. We'll break down the process step by step, giving you the tools to craft those signature 80s drum grooves, bubbly bass lines, and cool synth riffs. As always, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll learn and discover new things together. My goal is to help you level up your music production skills and unlock your creative potential. So without further ado, let's dive in and start crafting some indie dance. Move a couple of things on the screen here. Alrighty, so as always, hopefully we've got a microphone nice and loud and clear already. Just going to pop a limiter over onto the master track here, so in case we need to boost our levels a little bit as we go. Of course, shout out to Alex Moreno, who's already in the chat with me. And basically, just to let you know, Alex tuned into my radio show. I have a weekly radio show here in Ibiza every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. Central Eastern Time. And Alex tuned in, he's often there listening, and he heard some of the music I was playing, and included in my set this Tuesday just gone was some indie dance. And he said, hey, what about including some of that or doing something like that in your live stream? And so thanks for the suggestion, Alex. Here we are making indie dance. It's not a genre that I actually personally produce every day of the week or all the time, but with a lot of these electronic genres, there's a lot of overlap between, again, sort of melodic house and, you know, basically actually in my DJ set there was probably melodic techno, melodic house, some indie dance, some progressive, but generally something with melodies and harmonies for me, or a nice big fat sort of bass line. So as I said, thank you, Alex, for the inspiration. Some of the artists I guess we're looking at a little bit today, inspired by their sounds, would be people like, who could we sort of call upon? Rafael Ferrato, Damon G, Walter Velt, I think, is a really good example. I definitely play tracks from him in my DJ sets. Pavel Petrov from Bulgaria. So some artists like that. Also labels like Dynamic, Elm from Maceoplex. So there's a few ideas in there. So I've been listening to all that kind of music to inspire me a bit with what I'm about to do today. So let's have a listen to an example here that I just was when I was playing about, so we can kind of hear a little bit about what we're trying to make today. We're going to start from scratch, but this is just to test also the music levels. So if you're still there, Alex, if you could just let me know that that's all working good, but I believe so. That would be great. All right, so indie dance. What are some of the characters? Alex, sounding great, thank you. So what are some of the characteristics about indie dance? Well, as I've just mentioned, there's obviously a lot of overlaps in terms of sort of some of these genres and styles. But I think one thing that distinguishes it right off the bat is this tribute to sort of a little bit of disco and the 80s. And I think where we're going to begin with that a little bit is in the drums and the bass. So in the bass, we could think of inspirations such as like Giorgio Moroder and all of his beautiful Donna Summer, I Feel Love, and his sequenced bass lines, that bubbly kind of sequenced bass line that we're familiar with, if you know that kind of if you know that music. And then we can think about a lot of the drum kits that, you know, the drum machines that came out during the 80s and into the 90s that were sort of the first generation of drum machines. And there were some, I've just written down a few here. So if you're looking to do your own indie dance and you're looking for some samples, for example, to make your own drum kits, then there's the Lin LM1 that particular drum machine came out in the 1980s, was a staple of Prince's workflow. He made many of his tracks with the LM1, including When Doves Cry, Don't You Want Me by Human League, Tears for Fears, using the Lin LM1, which you can get samples online for sure, free or paid, of that drum machine. So if you're thinking about 80s, building your own 80s drum kits, that could be a good move. We also have the Oberheim DMX, which is 1981. That's you can hear that in New Order's Blue Monday as an example of that drum kit. Then we have the EMU Drumulator, Shout by Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, also with that drum kit. And then Sequential Circuits Drum Tracks, 1984. These are all machines, all with great 80s sound and 80s samples. So if you can get yourself some samples of some of those kits, and if you need any references to those, happy to drop it in the comments at the end of today's stream. You can go and look up those machines, find some samples, and then build your own kits. And what we end up with is something like, very specifically, you know, this kit that we've got here, which if we have a listen to, just the drum kit here, just a drum rack. And similarly, if we just soloed the bass line here, got that really nice kind of plucky, bouncy kind of sound. So let's get stuck in and start making some music. So new live set. I'm going to start with the drums and the bass so we can kind of get that feel going. And why not, for a little bit of a change today, let's work in the arrangement view, because that might be interesting for a couple of reasons as well, because we can kind of see a little bit, of course, what's going on. And we could also think about it, maybe to kill two birds with one stone, as we say, like perhaps look at a technique for getting out of the loop if we have time. But yeah, that's not the main focus today. So popping over to drum racks here, another genre that overlaps this nicely, that's full of 80s sounds, is synthwave. And so originally I put together some of my own drum racks to make synthwave. And in here, as you can see, are the kits I just spoke about. I've got a drum rack I've made of sequential circuits, drum tracks, one of the Oberheim DMX, one of the LM1, and one of the EMU Drumulator. So I spent a fair bit of time getting those samples and making my own drum racks so I could get this 80s sound for synthwave, but we're going to use that over in indie dance. So let's drag the sequential circuits over. I won't use, I think, all the sounds of this kit, but so I'm going to use a bit of modern sounds as well, but we'll be definitely looking at things like the snare, which has that really sort of acoustic or kind of 80s sound. Nice rim shot in here. Also the hats, they're much more acoustic. That's a bit of what we call a pedal hat. So yeah, I won't be using all the sounds in this kit, but that snare's nice. Let's also maybe just bring in, so you can hear it, the LM1 as well. Let's pop that over here. And let's look at just the snares again, because the snare is going to be important to us here. DJ Norman, very 80s drum kit. Yes, my friend, we are going that way today with indie dance. So that's a, you know, that's a nice big splashy kind of snare. And I can hear, if you know some of the music I was referring to, perhaps you're a bit young for it, but I can hear that straight away in the sound of Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, that exact snare from that kit. If we do a DMX here instead, we can also probably hear similar to the sequential one. So let's just start getting a groove rolling, and then we can, as I said, always swap out the sounds. And I'm definitely thinking that the kick in a lot of these 80s kits, they're nice, they're short, punchy, but I think we can swap that for sort of a modern kick and go a little bit more kind of, you know, beefier there on the kick drum, because I do want that to slap quite hard. So let's get some MIDI here and let's get in a pattern. So we're going to have 4 on the floor kicks. So that's nice and easy. I won't worry about ghost notes or any sort of extra groove for the moment, just a simple pattern to get us rolling there. And then on the snares, let's have, turn on the preview there, let's have on the 2 and 4 our snares And we'll bring that out as well. So we're going to have that nice, and let's loop up our arrangement here. And I'm also doing this in a drum rack today. 43 normal. We used to be a youngster. I'm north of that number, so it's all good. We lived in a great period of time where there's been a lot of great music, so I think it's a good thing myself. Okay, so nice and super simple so far. Let's have a little bit of a clap or two. We don't actually have a clap in this rack, so there's a good starting point straight away. Let's maybe have a look in one of the other kits. The LM1 normally had a really good clap. It does, but I'm going to check the others as well. EMU. Yeah, I kind of like that clap more. So let's just find that clap. So I'm just going to click hot swap so it goes into my library, and in theory, if not, we'll open this up a bit actually, and we'll do it this way. It's a little bit better. So let's see, there we go. So there it is there, and let's just drag that in and add it to this rack that we've got here. Nice. So we've got a clap in there, and I want sort of maybe like a bit of a, not the rim, sorry, but that sort of pattern. So I'll just do it here. And then we're going to bring that up onto that new clap up here. Something like that. And let's, while we're at it, get these snares and those claps. And we're going to randomize. We're going to use Ableton's randomize tool to get always a bit of humanizing, a bit of velocity change in there. And we can do that straight away. With the kick, I'm going to leave it a little bit for the moment. We could also sort of ignore that and perhaps choose a swing or a groove over here that already has a bit of velocity. So we might also add a groove from the groove pool or two here, because we might test out a bit of 16th swing. So we could have a Logic 16th swing in here. Something like, I'm going to go with some numbers that I quite like using. So I'm going to add the 56. Let's also have a 63, Logic 16th. Let's have the 56 again. I just replaced it with the other, like so. 63 as well. It's a bit more swung. Probably, actually, that's a bit too much, I think. So maybe a 59, something like that. And then we could also have an MPC or something as well here. 16ths again, maybe a 57. And you can see with those, the two Logic ones, they already have a bit of velocity in them. So if we do happen to use one of those as our swing over here, we're kind of already implementing a bit of groove on a bit of velocity change. I quite like that. And that's with this 16th Logic swing. And because it's checked here, there's a new feature in 12 which you want to have a look at. Just look at the chat here for a second. A2K77, hello there. Very warm welcome to you and Alex and Norman. Here we are, Indie Dance, building up a bit of a groove at the moment. We're just looking at swing. So right now, the thing I was just going to explain, that little yellow tag over there is a really cool feature that came in 12 in the groove pool here. And it means that whatever one is checked like that, it means that every time we start a new MIDI clip now, that's automatically part of the MIDI clip and it's already there. It's already selecting that one as the swing. So it's quite a nice feature that I think, and it means that now I can sort of don't have to write that down or keep that in the back of my mind each time I open a new MIDI clip. It's going to be focusing on that swing, and I'm going to take the other two away and I'm going to just stick with that. So that's going to add a bit of velocity change to these hits, and we can kind of hear it in real time. If we change this number, and if things are a bit quiet, let me know. I'll just boost up the limiter a little bit while I'll put a limiter on here, perhaps, just while we're working, and boost up the volume just a little bit until we get some more stuff in here, because it might just be a touch quiet. So just have a limiter there, and we'll just add a little bit of punch for a second while we're doing this. So yeah, 100% velocity, it's too much. but it meant that there was more. So we'll go back. You can hear no velocity, very strong, all the hits are the same. 20% subtle, but there's a bit of action. And 100, you can hear my kick dying away. So I quite like it if I'm going to use this, not to be too much, because it is being applied to my kick drum as well, and I don't want my kick to be super up and down. So if you want, again, you could have the groove, you could remove the velocity, but you've still got the swing, and we can now do these manually. So there's a few different options there. I'm going to use a bit of both. So we're using the swing component, but I'm leaving my kick out. So hopefully you're following me. I'm zeroing out the randomization here, and I'm just going to include the swing only, sorry, the velocity change only on those elements, right, by randomizing them down here. And then I'm going to bring that number up from 100 to a very subtle amount again, but it's only happening now just on my claps and snares, okay? So hopefully that makes sense for everybody there that's following along. In answer to A2K77, yes, indie dance. And indie dance, I think the separation of that from some of the other genres that it crosses over with is all about sort of like 80s drum kits. So yes, that's what we're doing. Let's get our tempo up to 124. We could do 128, 126, 124. There are nice deep indie dance tracks as well, 122, 123, 120 where we were, but maybe we go even 123, I think 124. Nice sort of crossover area. Right, let's get some hi-hats in here, and I think there's a nice pedal hat, the main hat here, the closed one. This one kind of has that acoustic sound again. It sounds like a real drum kit. So let's have a bit of, we'll start with offbeats only. Just playing on the offbeats, but we're going to add some fills. So let's hear what that sounds like. We're going to get velocity into that again, maybe a bit more. Shorten the notes up a little bit. Now we could try in this to have some of these actually on beat. And as I said, a little bit of a fill or two. So let's just try a pattern here in one loop, and then we'll extend it out. We'll get this guy down. So if you want, you don't have to do that. It could be, that's nice. Could all be just offbeat hi-hats, but I think it's nice with this particular one just to go in there a little bit and get a little bit of feel and a little bit of on beat. So when I'm talking about on beats, I'm talking about some hi-hats. We've got two here. They're happening the same time. In this case, it happens the same time as the clap, snare and the kick. Right here, just the kick and the hat, so it just varies up the pattern a little bit, gives a little bit more interest, so we can actually remove all of those and just copy this one across, right, like so. So we've got a nice 4 bars already, which is great, and we've got these sort of turnarounds of the claps. Right, it's already sounding okay. Let's have an open hi-hat. We might use that one, but let's also change our kick right now, because again, we're sort of using the 80s kick here, and I think I'd quite like to swap that for a nice kind of punchy kick, which I've sort of got over in my browser here. I've saved some of my favorite samples that are punchy kick drums. And studying indie dance a little bit, a lot of the kicks, they look a bit like this. They kind of have a transient and a little dip and then a nice big kind of subby body to them. They sort of look a bit like that. So if I visually looking at the kicks, they can be short, punchy. So let's try this modern kick. And I might just switch it out live with a couple of the others. That's a good one, that's strong. And that's also nice because it's got a little bit of noise in that sample, so if we were to hear that on its own, kind of can hear that noise continuing on there. Lots. So I'm not going to spend all day flicking through kick samples and keeping you bored with that. Let me just check though. Felt like I remembered a bit of a name of one that sort of sounded pretty good. Yeah, let's roll with this one for now. Let's do a little bit of a balance of our drum rack sounds a bit because the hi-hats are too loud and they need a bit of shaping as well. So let's just pop in here for a moment. Get into our closed hi-hats here. Just tighten that up a bit. We could also add just a little bit of erosion or something behind this. Get a nice little bit of dirt, a little bit of crunch. Let's try moving our sample start point around a bit. So I might just shave a little bit of that off as well. So just shaping it, it's important to me that that sort of sits kind of nicely in with everything else, right? Back over on our snare, let's also have a look at that a little bit. And I kind of feel like we could maybe try the LM snare in here and see what that sounds like. Just having a look back in the chat, sorry, I was kind of deep in my thoughts here. Norman, I used to be a drummer, most of the groove comes from the hats. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We're going to have a nice little interplay in a moment between the closed and an open one as well. I'd like this snare to hit a lot harder here. A2K77, that's a nice idea to use short syncopations on the closed hi-hats. Yeah, I think all that little bit of groove and little accents and groove notes, it helps a lot. And as I said, you could have a 16th pattern there, you could do all sorts really. So let's just pop back to my racks that I've built for synthwave, and let's grab the LM1 and throw it in here as well. Actually, I realized I still had this one here too. Yeah, let's maybe bring up that snare. So we're doing a bit of a hybrid. As I said, I kind of felt like that was going to be the case. I'm not just going to make it only out of the sequential drums, basically. I'm going to make it out of, you know, a few different sounds. So let's get, sorry, I lost my position there. Back in here. Let's try that again. So it's this one. Let's do this. There it is there. Let's just drag it straight over, pop it in our rack. Okay, looks like the right thing, and then we can move the MIDI from this snare. We could also layer them, so we could try that as well. Let's say we leave the MIDI there, but we copy them up as well. See what it sounds like as a layer. Let's take out the original. And maybe with that sample, it's very soft down here. So let's normalize it a bit. The new one. Let's put it here into this. So we've just added the EMU snare here. Maybe I use it on its own. Maybe we do a bit of layering up. Yeah, it's sort of indie dance, electronic type of vibe. Absolutely. Let's try again the layer. I think that's quite good as a layer. So, because we're going to layer it, I'm going to show you a little trick here. This is a good way to do it, right? So we've got currently 2 snares as a layer. The MIDI's separate and the samples are separate. I want to do a bit of processing in a moment. So in theory, if I hold down Command on my keyboard on a Mac here, I think it'll be Alt on Windows, and I drag that sample over to the snare pad and drop it, you'll see that Ableton's done a nice job of putting them together for me, and I can relabel that pad and call it the snare, or snares with a Z on the end. And you can see now I've got the 2 samples with the same MIDI layered up, and that makes my life a lot easier. I can do balancing the volume of the 2 over here on the chains. You can take them in and out. You could automate them to come in and out, layer up together. It gives me a lot of flexibility. What I'm going to do is put after this a bit of reverb. So I'm going to go looking for hybrid, pop it directly. So now it's behind the 2 snares. This is the reason I just did what I'm doing, so I can process these 2 together and treat them like one. And we're going to go in here. We're going to look for made for drums, and let's just solo this pad then for a second. Okay, so we don't want that in a moment, but that's a starting point, because we're going to do a nod to Phil Collins and all. Again, we're spending a bit of time in the 80s today. I grew up with Depeche Mode and a lot of the bands from their New Order, Human League, we referred to them before, Prince. So gated snares, sorry, very common trick from that era, where you make a snare nice and roomy with a big reverb, and then you cut that reverb off quite hard, so there's some sort of feeling that the snares are in a room and a space, but you don't have this very big long flabby tail. So let's just flick through a few of the Made for Drums presets and we'll decide on which one we're going to use. A bit tighter. And there's even one there, large gated snare. Well, let's use that one. Let's do that. So another little trick, just like I did with the layering of the snares. So hopefully you followed that, right? I don't need this MIDI up here anymore, because I've basically turned my snare MIDI into 2 samples together, and we could keep adding other sounds here if we want a bigger snare with a clap or rim or shaker. It's a great way to turn your drum racks into multiple layered samples within the pads, right? So we've got this snare layered up in here. We've got a reverb on it. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here, because I don't want that reverb sort of like it is now. I want to sort of use it in a different way. And there's a few ways we could use it. We could also put a new return channel together, and we could drag this reverb down to that return. What is the B return? Make sure it's 100% dry wet, and then we could go into here, into our rack, and send across a certain amount of that snare to this, and layer it with the dry snares and the wet snares from this reverb. But I'm going to show you a trick where I can keep working in my drum rack, and I'm not going to do it this way. That would be one option. But I'm going to show you another way. So we're going to be in here. We're going to take our reverb. Did I actually remove it? I did, sorry. So let's go back one more step or two till it appears there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to group that reverb into its own little rack. So keep an eye on what's going on here. And by the way, just looking at the chat there, it's good to have everybody in that's in so far and dropping some comments. Adrian Dantas, good afternoon to you. Long live 1980s synths. Yeah, we're going to get onto those in a bit, but you know, drums are really important to this particular track. So we've now built a little rack here. Let's call it our reverb rack. And by the way, if you're tuned in live, watching the stream, feel free to drop a comment. Let us know where you're listening from. Let us know if you're enjoying the stream. If you've got a question or something like that, feel free to engage with everybody there. It's always good vibes here. All right, so we're going to right click, make a new chain in our little rack that we're building here. And that chain is going to be called the dry chain. And if we switch now off the reverb chain, we should just hear the dry snares. Great. And if we turn on the reverb chain, we get a huge reverb, which sounds really nice. I'm going to make that reverb 100% wet. Let's go crazy. And now what I'm going to do is a little trick here. And I'm going to use, I told a fib earlier that I was going to stay all only in Ableton Live. Well, technically yes, but I am going to pull out here the Nicky Romero Kickstart, great little device that it is. And I'm going to put it after the reverb. So again, this is a cool little trick, ladies and gents. And I'm going to put it after the reverb. So we've got the dry chain, nothing on it, passing through the reverb on a parallel chain, which is copying basically the workflow of A, B, send and returns, but we're doing it internally on the track and in the drum rack even. So we're getting lots of nice control over what's going on here. And now with the kickstart, what we're going to do is switch it to audio, and we're going to go into the sidechain input, and we're going to choose the drum rack, and we're going to choose from the pre-effects, all this big list here, the snares pre-FX from that big list. So it's going to listen to the dry snare coming in as a sidechain. So it's actually sidechaining to itself. So if we now look at this display up here, we can come up here and we can move our sidechain and have them sort of sit together. Now let's get the dry wet down because it is a bit too much. We could also choose maybe one of the smaller ones. A bit tighter, and then we can bring the volume down a bit. Try a few of the others. Yeah, I don't think we need to be as steep as that. And then you can move this around. Until you get it in the right position. But essentially the dry snare is kind of clamping, is providing the sidechain, which is clamping down on the wet snare. So it's kind of giving us a little bit of a cut. We've still got the decay of the reverb and all of that good stuff, but we're sort of cutting it off. And we can dial it all in to taste. But we've got a lot of adjustability here. So let's put that in with everything else. So we'll undo the solo. So just a way for you to see that you can kind of build quite a nice workflow inside the drum rack and do a send and return kind of work parallel reverb chain here and give yourself like a gated snare using something like the Nicky Romero Kickstart to sidechain and cut it off. We just make sure it's listening to the right one as well. Ah, should be here, I think. That's better. Yeah, I had the wrong one. So you watch out for that. When you've got big lists like this, you want to make sure I had the sort of, you know, snares pre-FX. There's lots of different points here, but I've dug down a little bit down into the sort of more the group with the pre-FX. And that's this kind of rack. So just make sure you get the right point in the hierarchy of all of that. All right, so let's get back to the kit. And we might need to tone it down a little bit, but yeah, we need to tone it down a little bit. And you can also mess around with the pre-delay here. So just one last look at this. So the pre-delay on the reverb is helping the transient of the dry snares come through even on the reverb chain. That doesn't sound good, but you can hear the difference of how much snare's being let through, a lot more now, versus here the reverb's happening instantly whenever the sound comes through. So pre-delay, if we back it off a bit, it's letting more snare through, and so the delay again is coming in later, so it's again a bit more subtle. So the reverb happens straight away, bit of pre-delay, we let some of that original transient through, and then the reverb starts to happen. So again, just bring the volume down a little bit on the chain. And let's get back at all of our other drums. And let's tighten up the envelope a bit as well. Just making sure everything's correct here. Right, so that's another issue. So my ears caught me there. By the way, Adrian Dantes, remember your camera is on the top left corner. It's covering the kickstart. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's great for you to point that out, because obviously when I'm deep in the zone here, I miss those things. So I've made a mistake here. I'm human, I make mistakes. And it's good to sort of hear and figure out what that mistake is and what it is. And you have to be careful in one caveat to doing what I'm doing, and that is that I've ended up putting this reverb with the gate, which is why it actually sounds a bit strange, doesn't sound quite right, is it's only behind the EMU sample rather than the whole layer together. So it needs to come out one more grouping, right? It needs to be behind, so we have to be a bit careful. We don't want it on anything else other than the snare. So if we look at the kick, we see it's not here, and if we look at the behind the rack, so if we put a kickstart here, that's affecting the whole rack, right? If we put a kickstart there, it's just behind the kick drum right now, so you be a little bit careful with that. I just realized that my reverb was behind only one of the chain here, and so it wasn't working properly. So let's try that again, just to glue everything together. So we want snares here. We've now got it behind the two snares, which is much better. And now let's just check that again, we've got everything set up properly here in the side chain, etc. So I've relabeled this. Let me make sure it's really clear. Snares rack. Okay. So when we're looking in this list, we know it's the drum rack, and then we can see here, this is the track itself. Here's the rack pre-FX, right? So we can kind of make sure we're getting, again, the right thing in here as the sidechain import, right? So that's also important, I think, to label it so you can kind of check all the... So I'm happy with that for now. We've got a kind of gated snare feel. So the whole other option to doing that is to do a gate. So maybe I'll just show you that if you'd like to see that, so that you understand that side. So if we don't do that, we could also go and get an audio gate, put that in here, and that would be after the reverb. So if we copy our reverb over, okay, and we make another little rack here, doing it a different way. So this one over here is our side chain example, and this one would be the same reverb, in the same position, and then after it we would gate it, and the side chain of the gate would listen to the drum kit, and again the right routing, right? So make sure again that it's going in the right way. And then you tweak. And play around with the hold and release. It's a little bit different sounding, right? That's the traditional way. The kickstart with the sidechain is a little bit of a different method, and they do sound a bit different. I think actually this one's giving me a little bit more control. And this is actually the real old school way that it was done, gating it, right? And let's flick through a few more of these drum reverbs. Okay, starting from here. I like the tight ones. So out of those, who spotted the club toilet preset? You might know that one already. Pretty funny. There it is there. It's actually quite a good one because it's nice and tight. But I like this one. So there we go, gated snare, ladies and gents. We'll leave the sidechain off as I prefer, even though I've demonstrated that one. It's a little bit different. This is giving me the vibe I'm kind of looking for, so I'm happy about that. Just check my layers now. This closed hi-hat. Let's just try playing around with the pitch a little bit. Maybe down one semitone. Tighten that up a little bit there. All right, so let's get some more drum sounds in. A lot of messing about with drums, but it's pretty important here. This is a lot about drum grooves. So next, an open hi-hat of some sort. Let's have it sort of coming in just every now and then. And again, I might swap the sample. Let's see. Let's try it like so. Hang on. Mistakes. Okay, let's try it like this. Let's give that a little bit of randomize on the velocity. Once again, we could play around with that. So that's the open hi-hat and the sequential. What's the open hi-hat? Okay, again, nice and sort of acoustic sounding over here. Let's try it also. Maybe this guy. Let's also look at that one as an option. So the LM1 open hi-hat. Let's bring it up in the sample library here. Thanks, by the way, Adrian Dantes, for letting me know about the camera and the kickstart. Little trick when you're streaming and you get into the zone of making music. Yeah, overlooking that, so appreciate the heads up on that. So let's try that up to here. I like that. We could actually, on that sample, we want a bit of a longer release. Could be cool to try a little bit of delay on this, just a very little bit. Almost so you can't even tell that it's there. Again, let's look at the pitch. Let's have a little mix of our sounds. Work on our clap a little bit as well. Tighten it up a bit, nice. So full sustain. And let's on our snares, we'll do a little bit of EQing here. We could also try that before and after the reverb. Maybe we'll have it both, the double. Definitely after, because there's a little bit of low end that comes from this. We can also bring it up a little bit here in the EQ itself. So we don't, it's helping the kick drum basically what I'm doing there. I'm just kind of getting that reverb layer working and the gate, and I'm EQ'd after again to kind of control that low end as well after the effect. But now that I've EQ'd it in the reverb, it's probably not so bad. Let's try this again in front as well. I think so, that's better. So it's tight. Nice. So, drum groove. I want that delay to be really, really subtle on that open hi-hat, so even less. We have a little random panning on this one as well, so it pans a little bit left and right here. I think we've got a groove. Just tightening things up a little bit. Right, let's get back over into the arrangement view. That's a basic groove. Let's maybe, again, we could add it into this rack here, but I think we'll just do another empty MIDI track. And let's have, again, a little bit of this idea of incorporating modern sounds with the 80s kit. So we haven't, it's only so far we've put the kick that's like a modern kick drum in there to give ourselves a bit more punch than the 80s kicks. You could use them by all means, but yeah, I've gone for something that's a little bit more modern there to give us a bit more low-end grunt with the kick. Again, you could do a bit of layering there if you like with an 80s kick and a modern kick. Let's get ourselves either a 909 or an 808 or something like open hi-hat. So what are we looking for here? Some samples really. They're spread out all over the place. Let's try an 808. It's coming from the same kind of era as the rest of the drums, but just a different drum machine. So I'd open a hi-hat from an 808. Yeah, I want more of a ridey sound, I think, than the open. Okay, so if we don't have a ride in there, which I don't think we do, So let's switch over to a search. Let's go 909 and then ride. One shot, see what we got. And we'll also check out 909 open. Yeah, I think we'll go with it 909 open here. And let's make that short. So for those of you who've commented in previous weeks a lot about drums and professional drum loops, well, hopefully this is helping you look at that a little bit, layering up all these different drum sounds, as this is kind of something that I don't spend so much time on in the live streams. Sometimes I just sort of get a bit of a groove rolling, but in this case, I think in a moment it will make sense that it's kind of an important sort of feature of this music is that sort of kit that we've built so far, and now we're just kind of polishing it a little bit. So just giving it a little bit more. Let's get a bit of erosion on here. Just a very little bit of processing. All of this needs EQing, balancing and mixing, but just to get us sort of sounding. And I think we could actually, if in all honesty, we could keep going here with some percussion. So just doing a bit of housekeeping here. This is our 909 open. All right. By the way, the chat's gone a little bit quiet there, but that's all good. Hopefully you guys are all in watching the show, but feel free to drop any questions if you have any along the way here, and I will do my best to answer them. And of course, if you're new to the stream or with me at the moment, do feel free to say hello in there. Let us know how you're doing. All right, so just having a look. As I said, I think I did catch up with all the answers there, which I have. Okay, so maybe we could have a little bit of just finally in here. We could even use again our rack a bit. We could try a little bit of a tom conversation perhaps. Okay, let's do another short loop again for a second. Velocity. I'm going to make that have a lot more velocity to it, so it kind of dips down. DJ Norman, my 15-year-old pit bull is pinning me down, so I can't ride fast. Lol. Fair enough. That's one of the most original answers I think we've ever seen there. So let's get these toms down a little bit and mixed in a bit better. Let's do them together. I'm going to keep one a little bit longer than the other, so they're having a conversation. Could even try panning one a little bit to the left, the other one a bit to the right. Nice. Solid foundation, I think, to start with there. I also had an idea to do another little sort of FX-y perhaps layer, so we could maybe look at that as well. Still drums. Let's do a bit of MIDI, and let's maybe roll the dice a bit with an Ableton Live tool or two. So let's go to rhythm over here and throw in a bit of a pattern in here. Let's just switch it off for a second. Super solid. Thank you, Alex Moreno. It'll make a lot of sense, I think, once we start getting some musical things in, but we've got a nice punchy drum kit going, so that's good news. All right, so let's put auto back on. Now we can sort of, let's stretch out our pattern a bit as well. Let's loop it up a bit longer over here and then play around a bit with this. Okay, just for a second, and let's get a rim shot. And I'm just going to maybe grab the one from this kit, but I'm just not going to program this in the kit itself, in the drum rack. And often what I'll do personally myself is I will actually take all of these samples out of the drum rack at a later point. Like I'll split the kick into its own track, the clap into its own snares, etc. It's nice to build them in the rack because we kind of get the swing, the groove, the velocity, they're all interplaying with each other. And then if you like, you split them apart. But as you can imagine, it would be a lot of individual tracks already, right? We actually have all of these as possible individual tracks, but I think doing it today in the arrangement view, doing it in a rack for a change, you can kind of see that we've got all this interaction, and we can kind of look at that, work on it, control it all together, and then if we like later, we can split all of these out into their own individual tracks. But I think today, in today's example, it makes good sense to have it all together. So I just grabbed that rim shot, threw it on audio track, but what I want to do is put it down on this MIDI track into a simpler. Let's normalize it and throw on a loop here. And now let's play with the pattern a little bit. Quite like that already. Maybe we'll just leave one of those. Get our soft notes down a lot lower. Our high notes down a bit as well. Also the tom drum samples that you can hear in the drum rack, I might change those, but they're good enough for now. But I might use other toms as well. Let's try moving our accents around a bit here so you can see the notes that are the accents. And if you move the freak 4 down here, you can move the position. Yeah, I like that. So let's put a little bit of, say, corpus or something on here and see if we can get kind of something a little bit interesting, like kind of glitchy. So that corpus is adding a really nice bit of character, right? So if we take it out, and then I've added this beat repeat to throw in a few little random glitches here and there. So we get these little, every bar, little repeats. We can make it happen more often, every half a bar. We could also make it really short. I'm going to keep it though to 16th or 8th. And let's just try again in our corpus. I quite like tube as I've got it, but let's just try out also pipe and some of the others. Membrane's quite interesting. Great little tool for taking something like a rim shot, right? Still sounds quite rimmy at the moment. More glitchy, right? So just a nice little different percussion layer here to roll with the rest. Get rid of that sample from down there. All right, bassline time. Let's also just adjust our levels a little bit. Bit of reverb. Pan it left a little bit. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get a nice kind of bit of a layer up here of groove. Instead of the what was I going to say there, the corpus, we could also use a resonator here, could be fun as well. So we're just kind of using the rim shot to come up with something like a bit of a different percussion layer to go with the rest of the drums. So a resonator could be really nice. I think I like it at A1 actually there. So I'm not really looking for the rim percussion, I'm looking to use it to kind of create something that's a more unique layer. And I'm quite liking that layer now with the resonator, right? That sound. Let's put the corpus in as well. This would sound nice with a bit of reverb on it as well. So that's kind of giving me a bit of like a riff, like a synthy sort of riff. And we could make some some different patterns for that, right? So we've already got this pattern, but we'll get this right in a moment. There we go. Let's make a simplified version of it a bit. Right, so we could have here clip 1 and 2, and this could be some progress in our track, right? So 1 could be something we use early on, and then we move to 2 when we're building energy in our track later on. So I think the reverb's great, but also it's crying out for a bit of a filter. So let's maybe have that as an auto filter over everything. Bit of LFO, opening and closing around the cutoff here. So it's got some movement now, right? So that layer's kind of moving with the LFO and the filter, opening and closing. Even try a bandpass. Slow it down. Let's switch off some of this stuff, see what we've done. So we've got a nice kind of atmosphere to it. Pretty crazy, right? There's plenty going on there, making it. I'd also like it to move around left to right, so I'm going to use the simpler LFO to pan it a bit from left to right. So that's going to sweep it around a little bit. If we could also actually do it another way, so we could grab ourselves the auto pan. So you can kind of see it that way around. Let's slow it down to a bar, so it's just kind of moving around ahead a bit in a sine wave, left to right, and I'm just going to turn the LFO off down there. All right, so now let's get some bass action happening here. Just looking in the chat. Gazmaster, man, that's a beautiful rim sample. Where's it from? Yes, so let me just, thank you for reminding me, by the way, bit of housekeeping there. This is a bit more of a rim kind of, what would we say? It's a bit more of a FX-y sort of layer at the moment, but yes. So the rim itself, the sample, came actually out of the original drum kit that I started using today, which are samples from the Sequential Circuits drum tracks, the 80s, the original, one of the original 80s drum machines, the Sequential Circuits drum tracks, and it's the nice, healthy, beefy rim shot from there. Rename it, Alex Moreno? Yeah, probably a good idea, right? Anyway, Rim FX sounds a lot better than rimming a groove, or I would name it Rim Groove. Yeah, well. So we're getting the sort of futuristic elements with the 80s a little bit, which is kind of what I'm aiming for. If we take our toms out, so they're definitely well in the groove now as a part of what we've been listening to. Right, so time for some bass action. Indie dance, bubbly bass lines, eighth notes, potentially, combination potentially. So I've been listening to lots of the music. I want to do my own thing here. I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I don't typically write indie dance, so it's good to do these kind of challenges and learn as we go along, but I also want to sort of come up with my own sound, I guess, if I can, as I go. So I'm going to do a mixture again of on-beat, off-beats. So let's try that. So we'll have some off-beats and some on-beats in eighth notes. And I think it's time for maybe a bit of drift here. Be a good synth perhaps to get that kind of bubbly sound. And see what we've got. Of course our notes are up too high at the moment, so let's get those down. And let's get our clip longer than it is. Get some random into the velocity. Work on the synth a little bit. Let's have a bit of noise. That's also what we're here today. We don't have a scale at the moment, a key or a scale. No worries, Gasmask Store. Very welcome to it. Thank you very much for your subscription. I appreciate that a lot. Let's do D minor, perhaps. So we'll have a D as our root note. So we could do something like that. Not really sold at the moment on that bass pattern, but that's okay. We'll put that over here. We might try a few different other ideas because I'm going to look for that kind of signature sort of bubbly sounds is the idea. Let's go D minor. I think we'll stick with that as the musical component for today. And let's have D minor's nice. It's got one flat in it. The rest are white notes, so it's kind of got a little bit of character from that flat. One black key, but the rest are white notes. And let's have something like a little long note or two here. So let's try something else, see which pattern we prefer. And we'll sort of do, if we go down, it will be darker. So if we're looking at D minor, let's bring up the scale. We've got D as the root, C is the 7, B sharp is the 6th. So we could even do 1, 7, 6, 1, something like that kind of progression. We'll try that in a moment. And then on that, what I'm thinking to do is we'll use an arpeggio in front of the drift. So keeping drift here, and we're going to try 8ths or 16ths as the ARP pattern to get these single notes broken up. Let's try 16th. Much better, I think. Taking out my toms out for the moment because they are getting in the way of the bass. Might need to work on those. So we could have it sounds much more like a sort of indie dance, sort of bubbly type bass line than me trying to program the pattern before. And we've also got a bit of a progression here, and we could mess around with that. So that could lead us to all sorts of pathways. So we're doing 1, 7, 6, 1. We could even go down to the 4 or the 5 here and turn back around. And if you do a downwards descending sort of chord progression, it's definitely more moody, more darker, more kind of melancholic typically. So maybe we make that happen later. I quite like it. Like that for the moment, re-triggering back up there. So let's look at our envelopes a bit. This is the filter envelope, which is affecting the cutoff. So let's have it really tight and plucky. Right in there. Nice. So a bit of resonance on our filter. And as you can hear, boys and girls, if you are in the stream with me and you're watching, great to have you on board. You can hear that Ableton synths are very, very capable here of doing serum, massive, whatever it might be. They can sound as good or equal or better. It's just how you make it. And you can use a preset if you like. That's absolutely fine. I'm just kind of in the zone that I like to shape the sounds myself. So, but you can make this sound really, really nice. And if we add a bit of a saturator here to the drift as well, let's bring a bit of saturation into this. Right, they can sound really, really nice, and it's very, very simple. It's a saw and a sine. The sine's 1 octave below. We've got a bit of noise on here. We've got a tight filter envelope applied to the cutoff, and at the moment it's 100% of this envelope 2 here being applied to the frequency cutoff, so it's modulating that. We're getting that really nice, tight, kind of bubbly, plucky sound. The amp envelope could also be adjusted a bit. And then we could start to make this sort of move around, but that plus a bit of a saturator, and we've got a very nice meaty kind of good indie dance kind of bass line happening here. Let's also turn on in the arpeggio re-trigger. We'll do it by beats. So the ARP will re-trigger every now and then. Kind of resets the pattern a bit. We could also try but now that it's doing random, we want to probably record that and pick our favorite, because that's going to be, if we choose, I'll just hit stop, if we choose random over here as our ARP, and then we go and open this project another day, that will sound different, right? So if you do choose something like a random pattern from the ARP, in this case, this bass line, then we might want to start printing that into MIDI, so we can go ahead and find our favorite little loop or 8 bars of it and turn that into the bass line, and then we would switch the arpeggio off. But it's nice because it's giving us, again, more variations, especially when it re-triggers. You see the little light there. Each interval of a quarter note, it's starting the arp again, and it can start the style of the arp again. Go back to up or up down. Now we've got a music key in the mix. Let's just check some tuning of things. Putting it in D, the same as the root note of my bass line. So now my rim shot FX is in key. So let's mix the bass line a bit now. Bring it down a bit, it's obviously very powerful. Could have some little ghosts, little details here as well. So let's actually have a little fill or two in the hi-hats. Nice little trick I like to do, just have a little bit of a lower note as well for a little turnaround at the end. Nice. Okay, so let's get rid of these audio tracks. We don't kind of need those. Let's have pad of some sort, perhaps, but let's get a MIDI track in. And let's get now maybe a lead, maybe a vocal chop as well. So we could have something like a little bit of a vocal kind of chop idea going on, perhaps. What was that, an octave down? Sorry, was the octave down? Yes, on the open hi-hat return here, it is an octave down. That extra little note there is exactly an octave from the root. You don't have to be an octave, could all be any of the notes in the scale there, but I kind of like having a pitch down little, yep, exactly, that's what I'm sort of showing you now. So hopefully you can see that I've just revisited that, Alex, and it is the last hat. No worries. De nada. Okay, so over here, let's do something like a C3 legato for a second. Let's get back over to our regular interface there. C3 legato, vocal sample, something from my little live stream sample library over here. Maybe something like this. Let's drop that in. Let's do 1 octave of notes here. So I'll explain what I'm doing in a moment. So let's have 1 octave like that. Let's use Command E and split it to 16th notes, which is what the grid is at the moment. Turn this into slice mode. And let's make sure that the bottom note of this, we're in C3, is in C1. That's the sort of default for a sampler to start playing back. Let's loop that. So you can see we're just playing this slice at the moment, but we want to jump around all the different slices. The rhythm's nice. That's come from chopping the notes into 16ths, so it's re-triggering every time, you know, each of those slices. So if we put this all as one, it's quite different, right? So we just got one little vocal chop, but if we chop them up, Command E on a Mac there, we can hear that re-triggering rhythm. Now what we want is to try an arpeggio in front of this. Day for a bit of arp action today. So now we're going to bring random in again. Nice. And we can have this sliced up vocal quite a lot of ways. So it's currently sliced by transient. Let's try region, and let's try lots of smaller regions. Quite like using region a lot for the slices, right? We can do it in real time as well. I like it in 16ths. It's up to you. If you want it like less or more glitchy, we can even let's process this vocal a little bit. And it's in C3, which is quite handy because it means that it's in our scale. We have a C in our scale, so we know that the C works, but we can also tune it to any of these other notes in the scale. But it's C3, so it's a super easy sample to work with, because if we put our notes on C3, we get a C3 sample back. So that's kind of the rule with sampling. We tune the sample so that if we wanted to play it on the keys, that when we hit a C3, the sample actually plays a C3, and in this case that's happening right off the bat. So we're in good shape, and we can definitely tune it to different tunings in our scale, but it's in C. It already sounds quite okay, and we might keep it in that frequency range so it's away from the bass and the kick. So like always, bit of reverb. Let's also get re-trigger on here. Maybe that's a bit too many re-triggers. You can also try repeats. I think I'll do that a different way rather than internally here. And let's have the velocity MIDI effect. We could use also the velocity in the ARP, but let's use it over with its own separate effect. And we will have some little bit of randomization in the velocity of these vocal chops. dial it into a little bit of taste there. Let's have a bit of a compressor. The sound does jump around a little bit, so let's even it out a bit. And we could also have a little bit of echo. Unsync them. I'm going to leave that off actually for now. Let's bring down a bit of the filter inside the simpler. Darken it up a little bit. And let's get into the envelope of this. Give it a little bit of filter envelope. Some nice high resonance, so it gives us a bit of acid sort of squelch. So let's find the little spot where it's still a vocal, but just, right? Doing a little mixing. We'll try this pitch down. Nice. All right, let's keep on keeping on here. A little bit of housekeeping. By the way, if you're tuning in and with me in the stream here, hope you're enjoying. We're making a bit of indie dance here. So we started with a nice 80s drum kit. I've now got that kind of characteristic bass with the drift here. Added some sort of interesting layers, I think, with the rim kind of FX. Little layers, nice. It's kind of a little percussive thing. And now this vocal kind of sliced up chops is also kind of FXy, and we're sort of giving a bit of futuristic with the, you know, with the 80s. So there's a nice little sort of play off between the two here. And there's all sorts of things we could kind of add in here for detail. But let's say we now maybe have a little bit of a chord, a little bit of a pad type thing, so we can stretch out our slice vocal. And so these bass gives us a nice kind of position, and that's why sometimes like the bass might be the catalyst for some chords, or the chords might be catalyst for the bass, but we can use that MIDI that we've got there. We could sort of follow that with some chords, build them out into triads, or we could also do a little bit of a change to it, but it's a good starting point. So we might just have like, well, let's even just try octaves, which is not much of a chord, but a little bit of a chord. So maybe we make it's the minimum we need for harmony or chord, so to speak, is to have two notes. Yeah, so the end here, I'm not going to jump up. And look for another. There we go. I think this is crying out maybe to be sequenced though into an up. Perhaps we'll try that. It just kind of, that's what I'm hearing, so let's try that first. Okay, so lots of arpeggio action today, but this might end up being sort of the art pluck type thing that we might have here. A bit too pretty, so maybe we stick with these as chords, but yeah, I was thinking it could also be a sequence, but I think I don't want it as pretty as that. I'm sort of going in a direction that I don't want with this idea here, so let's keep it the chords. As I think they sort of fit. Let's have all the root and bring those down. Might not have these low notes. Let's detune a second oscillator, get a nice thick sound here. Pulse width on the square wave, oscillator 2 with an envelope, modulate it a bit. Okay, let's have a bit of a listen to what we've got musically here. So maybe with the vocal, we pitch it back up. So I'm separating everything so they've got room to breathe. Maybe a little pitch down. There we go. And this wavetable, I want to side chain that and to the kick really. Again, with these chords, we could also chop them up a little bit. So they've got more rhythm to them. We're cooking. Nice LFO on the filter frequency, kind of fastish square wave to get this nice kind of rhythmic. Let's bring in the bottom filter as well. Yes, Alex, we are cooking. nice kind of movement happening. Kind of like a bandpass what I've done here, but it's kind of modulating and moving both sides. Testing things out. So we're just going to call this a bit of a pad chord for now. And let's try and use the last sort of 12 minutes or so to kind of do something with a vocal a little bit on top of the chops. By the way, I hope you've been enjoying the stream. And as always, you know, it's been great to have those of you who've dropped a comment there. If you have any questions, do fire them away. About sort of 10 or 15 minutes or so to go for this week. This kind of feels like a track to me that if I was working on this myself at home, I think there's some good things in here, and I'd probably like to keep on going. I think so maybe a part 2. Perhaps you can let me know if you're here live or you're watching this back on replay. If you'd like to see this track continued, let me know. It'd be good to kind of get a bit of feedback on that. Is it something I should continue? It feels like something I would continue normally. Right, so we've got a bit of a professor talking about something here. So I'm thinking maybe something like this. Let's take these patterns over here, get them right out the way.
It's possible that we're the only...
Luna Chris just got here, but for sure want to hear more. That's great. So we've got 1 thumbs up for a part 2 on this indie dance kind of idea here in Ableton Live 12. Cool.
It's possible that we're the only civilization in the Milky Way galaxy at the moment. Clearly the universe needs something to us. It's possible that we're the only civilization in the Milky Way galaxy at the moment. Clearly the universe needs something to us. So meaning exists here. But if there's no other intelligence out there in our galaxy and we destroy ourselves, then we might eliminate meaning in a galaxy of 400 billion stars forever. That's what we might do. Consider that, world leaders. You have potential.
All right, just kind of look for a couple little pieces in it.
So meaning exists here. But if there's no other intelligence out there in our galaxy.
Okay, so let's grab, because I like the word galaxy, it kind of resonates with me. So where was a galaxy there?
In our galaxy.
Somewhere in here. Is it this guy?
Galaxy. And we destroy our galaxy.
So let's grab that little chop there, throw that on an audio track by itself. Actually, just do that again. Turn off the main vocal. We'll come back to that in a sec.
In our galaxy. In our galaxy. In our galaxy.
Let me just loop it, looking for something specific here.
In our galaxy. In our galaxy. In our galaxy. In our galaxy.
So I think that's where he says galaxy. Or starts with a G. Let's try something like this. Just experimenting here, ladies and gents. Not quite as slice of
in our galaxy. 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 In our galaxy
Let's keep going with this. It's not quite probably the perfect slice, so this might be a TB continued, like to find the better slice in here. I'm just trying something sort of a little bit rough at the moment. The idea is sort of to take a slice and turn it into something, but this might not be the right slice in the end, but the idea is going to be sort of the same more or less. So let's do that. Let's just loop that and listen. Okay. Consolidate that. Flip it. Yeah, so I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it better. I'm going to find a better slice. That one's not the one for me, but the idea of repeating a section, joining it up, reversing it, turning it into little stuttery kind of pieces like that, that is 100% going to happen. But as I said, I'm going to scrap that one. Just testing it out, wasn't really the right slice. I'm kind of conscious of the time a little bit, so it wasn't the best example there. But as I said, if we're doing a part 2, then I will create that part for sure. So I'll just make myself a note to do a stutter vox, and we're going to do it in audio. I think that would be nice, and it's going to come out of this big vocal down here, but I'm also going to use this big vocal for some other things, I think. So kind of quite like a...
Then we might eliminate meaning in a galaxy of 400 billion stars forever. That's what we might do. Consider that, world leaders. You have potentially a galactic size responsibility to maintain meaning in a galaxy. That's why it bothers me, because I think that's true. So I think what we do here will have ramifications in that sense, way beyond potentially a galactic size responsibility to maintain meaning in a galaxy. That's why it bothers me, because I think that's true. So I think what we do here will have ramifications in that sense, way beyond the shores of our own planet. To me, a lifeless world.
So yeah, I'm looking again for a little snip that I can do something else.
Will have ramifications in that sense, way beyond the shores of our own planet. To me, a lifeless world, a lifeless galaxy is a meaningless galaxy.
So that could be cool, that little bit.
Ramifications in that sense, way beyond the shores of our own planet.
So let's chop it. By the way, I've done no warping or nothing fancy with that. It's unwarped. It's just following along. It's a spoken word, so it's kind of a little bit rough and ready, but that's kind of cool. It doesn't need to be particularly kind of massaged into something perfect.
Will have ramifications in that sense, way beyond the shores of our own planet. To me.
Okay, so let's have a little look at what we could do with this. So I'm looking for, just to explain what's in my head, I'm looking, as well as that little stutter vox, I'm looking to do something kind of robotic and a bit kind of futuristic to this vocal. So I like it, it's great as it is, but that's not kind of how I'm thinking to use it.
Will have ramifications in that sense, way beyond.
Let's put it in frequency.
Will have ramifications in that sense. In that sense, way beyond, will have ramifications 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 in that sense.
Right, so taking it into kind of dark, nasty, kind of bit twisted.
Ramifications in that sense, way beyond, will have 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 ramifications in that sense, will have ramifications in that sense.
Yeah, so a little bit of some sort of sound designy type action with the voice. I'm just giving you a bit of a preview. And one other idea I'm thinking to do here, to be continued by the sounds of it. So let's say I just switch off those two and I grab just a regular shifter here from Ableton, and we use the hot swap to open it up. So we're going to see the presets of the shifter. Okay, there they all are in their glory there. And what I'm thinking to do a little bit there, let's just turn the default shifter into one of the presets and have it open so that I can flick through those. And then what I'm going to do, or try to do, is open up a new audio track. It's a bit sound designy, as I said, and I'm going to have it listen to this track, track 12. So it's going to be coming into there. We're going to turn it to in, we're going to arm this, and we're going to right click on it and we're going to show the take lanes, right? Got that shown there. Okay, let's just do a bit of tidying up here. Bring the browser in a little bit, the groove pulled down a bit so we can see what we're doing. Let's loop it up a little bit further. Let's just check that we're working here. Okay. Pretty wild, probably a little bit too crazy, but that's going to be kind of the idea here, the concept. Let me just again fix that up a little bit. I'm just going to close the browser, but my webcam will be over here somewhere. So let me just undo that recording, get rid of these take lanes. Let's have a look at what happened there with the volume a little bit. Delete automation on there. Let's just test it out first. Make sure nothing else is switched on. Solo this for a second. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm thinking to do. That's a pretty wild preset. As I said, all of these shifter presets are. So I'm thinking still to do what I'm just showing you here. That's what I had the input on, that's why it was too loud. Got it, okay. So we're going to turn that off, then we only hear the dry. Still loud. Bring it down a little bit. We don't hear it twice. Okay, so sound design cooking here. Everything's routed good. We're running into there. We've got the shifter. Let's open it up so we can hot swap it. Take lanes are going to show, and we start a recording. Now, I'm just going to roll through some of these shifter presets whilst it's recording.
A lifeless galaxy is a meaningless galaxy. Will have ramifications in that sense. Way beyond the shores of our own planet. To me, a lifeless world, a lifeless galaxy is a ramifications in that sense. Way beyond the shores of our own planet. To me, a lifeless world, a lifeless galaxy is a meaningless galaxy. Will have ramifications in that sense. way beyond the shores of our own planet. To me,
okay, I'm going to stop it there because, as I said, this is going to be something we're going to make a bit more serious. But just to give you an idea now, I'm going to turn this track back into no input, and we have all the take lanes down here. We can delete this stuff over here. That's not useful to us, but what happens up here is going to be useful. We're going to unsolo that track there, and now we're going to listen to what we've recorded down here in the take lanes and sort of build a new vocal out of those bits and pieces. So that was the idea here, and we can do that. Let's turn off a few things. And now we can get a pencil tool, come down here into the take lanes, and let's loop it up a bit smaller. Nice, right? Just like that. Making little cool kind of loops out of all the different crazy shifter patterns over that vocal, and we just carry on doing that. And you can zoom right in here and do all sorts of different crazy stuff, really thin slices. And if I just take that very first loop, I think that was kind of cool, but I would carry on like that, as I said. So I think that's for, just got the sun in my eyes a bit. It's nice having it through the window. This is kind of an idea I think I will do with that vocal to incorporate in the track. So if I just kind of like give a little sort of preview of that with what we have, do a little recap of what we've done so far today on this indie dance track on a Sunday afternoon in Ibiza in Ableton Live. Let's bring that little vocal snippet over somewhere here, and we can consolidate that little piece there into a clip, bring it over here, bring it, let's say, onto a new audio track. There's one there that's not doing anything. So something like that. And all of this, as I said, will be for future work in progress, but it's kind of, the technique I think is really fun. Just flipping presets of the shifter over this kind of vocal, trying to turn it into some sort of robotic, glitchy, really interesting loop that it wouldn't be if we just plonk it on the track, even though it sounds quite nice as the audio snippet that it is. I'm looking to kind of take it in a futuristic kind of direction. So take lanes, recording, chopping up, flipping presets and stuff, really a lot of fun, and we might come up with something excellent. And the same, as I said, I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to look for a really nice slice that I can kind of like duplicate and turn into a stutter effects that I can reverse and flip around, and they're going to be part of this kind of concept of this track as well. So let's get the main loop here. And if that had a delay on it as well, have a really nice little vocally FX. So you get the idea that hopefully just with that little rough, quick slice, we don't actually need the limiter anymore here. We've got plenty of juice in the drums themselves or in the track itself. So little things like that sprinkled out through the track, or it could even be that you sort of choose to have this, you know, as a loop. So we should be able to turn that on in there. And then we further sort of chop it up actually. So another option here would be, let's turn off the reverb and delay. We loop this up. And I'm going to go into beats here. Use the transient preserve. So lots of possibilities. It could also be turned into like a full-blown own sort of vocal loop as well. So I'll give that a bit of a think for part 2, but I definitely will go back and work on that and make it a more polished part, let's say. Just going to go backwards a bit there, if I can. Let me just do that. There we go. Let's go right back to just a loop. There we go. And back into position there. I think I had it. Yep. So let's do a quick little recap here. The bulk of the stream today was about building the drum kits. There are a couple of toms in the pattern that I've silenced a bit now. We might try those back in the mix, but there's our drums. We began thinking about indie dance and thinking about the 80s. 80s drums are kind of a feature, I think, of that genre. And so we got here some samples from the Sequential Circuits drum tracks, very famous drum machine from about 1984, I think, used in Depeche Mode and Tears for Fears and by Prince, lots of artists. And we built a really nice 80s drum groove here. And we've got some toms if we wish, but they kind of didn't fit so well once we got sort of more elements in. They're a little bit busy, but they could be there when other elements aren't. Then we had an open hi-hat to complement those drums a bit. So let's put that width together. Just a simple 909 open hi-hat that's been sort of shortened up a lot. And then a nice rim from the original drum kit, but taken out of there and added some resonator to it, so it's its own little layer. Let's listen to that on its own. So it's a kind of perc FX rather than just percussion. Plus the 909, plus the drums. And then I went straight into the bass, important part of indie dance. And we've got this nice drift, pretty simple to be honest, with an arpeggiator playing these, arpeggiating these notes, this little sequence of notes here. And a bit of saturator on the drift to get the nice sort of sound into it. Then I made a vocal FX, got a vocal and have sliced it up inside a Simpler, added an arpeggiator to play the different slices with a little bit of processing, and that sounds like this. And then worked on this wavetable with this chord progression. Kind of follows the bass, but then it does its own thing. And again, no presets here on the synth sounds. They're just default instruments from Ableton that I've shaped to make the sound I'd like it to sound like. And then finally, as I said, I've got this vocal down here. Ran out a little bit of time, to be honest, but yeah, I've got some plans for that. And I've just shown you a quick little example of kind of a couple of the ways I'm going to probably use it through the track. So all together, let's bring back our, oh, we have got them actually, which is good. So I'll let it play for a little bit longer just so you can get a feel for it. I'll play around a little bit with the So on that note, I believe it's a part 2 to carry this track forwards. So it's going to be still working on the idea, as it can be sometimes, as I said, but not too much more to go. I think if I'm doing a part 2, it's to get these nice little vocal pieces together for the track. As I said, I want kind of futuristic, glitchy, choppy, kind of robot type vocals out of that idea I've got. Definitely want to play around with this, the take lanes and the shifter, to kind of record some interesting parts, make some nice little stuttery transitions. And there might also be room for another bit of music in here, like some conversation between a couple of leads, perhaps lead synths. Yeah, so as always, it's been fun. Thank you very much. I'll just look through the comments here. Alex Moreno, of course, right from the get-go. Thanks very much for joining me. And also thank you for your suggestion to do indie dance. That was a good call. I've enjoyed making this little idea. I hope you've enjoyed watching me putting it together. DJ Normal Norman, he was having trouble with his dog pinning him down. I hope he's doing good, but great to see him earlier. A2K77, also thank you to you for your comments in the stream. Adrian Dantes, good to see you earlier. Long live 1980s synths, absolutely. Shan Sivakumar, I'm very sorry, didn't perhaps speak with you, but thank you for dropping your comments there as well. Gasmaster also. And finally, Luna Chris 1. I know you just got here towards the end, but thanks a lot for dropping a comment and saying hi. And also, if you're watching this back on replay, well, obviously, feel free to drop a comment as well. And yeah, on that note as well, a little favor to ask, if you do enjoy this video and you do enjoy the content on the channel, do consider giving the video a thumbs up, dropping a comment. It all helps spread the word. Share the video with a friend if you think it will be helpful for them, and do subscribe to the channel if you'd like to know when the next stream is happening. Pretty much every Sunday I'm here at 3 p.m. Central Eastern Time, presenting some concept to help you level up your skills in Ableton Live and electronic music production. As always, I will leave another video that, if you've enjoyed this one, I would suggest you watch that one next. I'll leave a card to that as soon as I can. I wish you a great weekend, the rest of it, of course, the week to come, and I will catch you, boys and girls, in the next live stream. Thank you all very much. Take care. Until then, adios and ciao for now. Goodbye, everybody. Ciao.